Welcome to The Unknown Angler. Today we're going to be tying the Epoxy Clouser with UV epoxy resin. I'm going to start out with a 2-aught tarpon hook. This is a mustad tarpon hook. We're going to add a couple of lead eyes. Those lead eyes need to come far enough back. You need to make sure that you have enough distance between the eye and the lead eyes. I like to use the lead eyes as the distance. Basically, the length of the lead eye back is what I like to use for the distance back from the hook eye to the lead eyes to give you enough room for your head. You will need more than you think you need. You're not tying trout flies. We're not trying to tie the smallest head we can. I do measure out my bucktail. I try to make my bucktail, I'm measuring it out with my vise here, but I try to make the bucktail to the hook eye about the length of my index finger. That's how long I like to keep my flies. And then I tie my bucktail in behind the lead eyes and try to match it, the butts right up against the lead eye itself. This gives me a nice, really nice body on the fly. And as you can see, it matches right up against those lead eyes. It's not in front of the lead eyes like you would normally tie a clouser. You'll see why I do that in a minute. I'm going to tie some diamond braid in front of the lead eyes. And then come behind the lead eyes and wrap all the way back to where I'd like to start wrapping the diamond braid forward, which is right back to where I finished off the bucktail. And I'm just going to wrap that diamond braid forward. And every once in a while I do like to pull on the bucktail a little bit to make sure it's all straightened out and nice and even around the hook. Just keep wrapping forward with the diamond braid. And this is a neat little trick that I did pick up. Basically, you want to come behind the eye, over the top, around and across. So you crisscross the top on top of the hook eye. You don't need to do that on the bottom, mainly because the fish is never going to see that bottom area around the lead eyes. I'm now going to use my fingers and whip finish the fly here. The reason is because I'm going to be taking this fly off the vise. I'm going to be adding epoxy to it. First thing I'm going to do is add the epoxy to the body. And this is an epoxy that I've just started using. It's really cheap UV epoxy. Got it on Amazon. Anoki. It's potting epoxy. They use it in jewelry making. You can go to my epoxy video and see the different epoxies that you can use. You can use Loon, it's great. This stuff just happens to be way cheaper. It's about a quarter the price of Loon. And the difference here is that you need to use the flashlight, but it doesn't quite cure it. And the reason it doesn't cure it because it's a very slow curing epoxy, which makes it crystal clear and it makes it work really well. What you need to do is buy yourself a little UV lamp. They use them for doing nails. You can put it under there and turn it on for a minute or so. I put 2 coats of epoxy on there before putting it back in the vise, so there's a big thick area of epoxy around the fly itself. Then I tie my thread back in, flip the fly over, and start tying in some crystal flash. By the way, this is not a new fly by any means. The Epoxy Clouser has been around for years. Probably 25 years ago, I saw my first one in Biscayne Bay. A guide handed it to me. I was bone fishing, a little tanned one. A few years later, I found it in Bob Vervicker's, if I'm saying that right, Bob Vervicker's book on saltwater innovation. And Tim Borski had tied it. And that's a picture of his fly right there. Called it the Indestructo Clouser is what he called it. Okay, now tie your bucktail back in. Make sure it's all even around the hook. The reason you really do want to do this here is because we're about to cover the head with epoxy, and we're going to let the epoxy leach back into the fibers so that it holds the front area of the bucktail up, so it keeps a nice shape in the water. And just basically whip finish your fly. Cover the nose with epoxy. General amount of epoxy. Make sure you get it back into the fibers, into those bucktail fibers, like I said, so it holds a nice shape in the water. Once you get a liberal amount on, and you notice I'm not sparing this epoxy, I'm really putting it on it pretty heavy. And you're going to need to keep rotating your vise. If you use this epoxy, one thing it is, it's very thin, it's very nice. There's no bubbles in it. It cures really clear. It's really nice stuff to work with. But once again, you do have to put it under that UV lamp. The one that I got off of Amazon, again, they're only about $10 or so, $10, $15. That's it. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. See you next time.